Welcome to a broadcast of the recent Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Wednesday morning at the Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings and you are invited to attend. Agendas are posted prior to the meeting at www.loraincounty.us. Click on Departments to see the Commissioners page, then click on View Agenda.
Good morning. Could we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you like to introduce?
Good morning, Pastor. Can you introduce yourself and tell us where you're from? You're going to do our prayer this morning.
My name is Jeff Ahlgrim. I'm pastor of Life Church of Lorain County, and we just moved to Grafton just a few weeks ago. So that's where we are. Used to be in Elyria.
Thank you.
Let's pray. God our Father, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for the life that you have granted us. We ask you now to grant our county council members wisdom as they manage our county's resources. We ask you, Father, to give them compassion as they make decisions that are fair and beneficial to all our citizens, rich and poor, young and old, citizens of all kinds. And we ask you to give them strength to fulfill their responsibilities to the best of their ability. We thank you for our public servants and ask you to protect them and watch over them and give them all they need to fulfill their duties. And we thank you now, God, for hearing us and responding to our prayers. Amen.
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 Thank you.
Thank you,
Pastor.
Pastor.
Thank you. Pastor, you're the first one to get the dog to say amen.
Yeah.
Have that effect.
And as a reward, you get to take the dog with you.
Little playful guy. He is the cutest little thing. He's a lab boxer mix. He's about 10 weeks old. He's available today, so if you want to go down to the kennel, pick him up. He makes somebody a great family member,
I think Jerry
great
wants
pet.
him.
Pardon me?
Jerry wants.
Jerry wants him? Jerry! This little guy was found in Pittsfield, so I'm surprised somebody hasn't come looking for him because he's really, really got a great personality and make a lot of fun. So come down to the kennel. We have 31 dogs, other dogs to choose from. So if a puppy's not your style, you want to save an older dog, look at this. How fun is he? Look at this. Look at this. Oh my gosh. So cute. All right, come on down to the kennel. Thank you. Come on. Come on. Fun. Okay.
Madam Clerk?
Under Resolutions, number 1, investments.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Appropriations.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Transfers.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
No advances, no repayments, requisitions.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Travel.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Bills.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Under the Commissioners, authorize various personnel actions as indicated on the summary sheet for employees within the jurisdiction of Lorain County Commissioners.
Mr. Cordez?
Thank you, Commissioner Kalo. Let's take a look here. I do have a couple potential hires at Job and Family Services I would like to talk to the board about. Also, pending litigation. Both of those topics are allowable under the Sunshine Act for executive session discussion, so I'd ask at the conclusion of our regular board meeting today, we go into executive session and we talk about those two issues that I've outlined. Thank you.
Approve and waive the reading of the minutes of August 6th.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Authorize payment of $1,000 to Boyer and Cool Home for Funerals, Lorain, for Guy Williams Sales, Sheffield Lake, indigent veteran in accordance with the ORC 5901.25.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Request for proposal for drug testing system for on-site urinalysis substance abuse testing facility.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. Cordez, you said we had to hold this from last week. Did we straighten out the issues?
I believe we have them straightened out, Commissioner. As just a matter of information for those that may have been following this in pieces, we can collect it all together here. We were part of the adult probation urine analysis screening program, which was combined with the crime lab, so we could share resources. The adult probation department moved in a different direction with their testing. They didn't need as significant a test of the urine sample, and they were able to save some money by going to what they call a stick test. That's well and fine for them, but some other outside agencies, and one of them specific domestic relations courts, require a more detailed testing and analysis of samples that are captured. However, we weren't really running the urine analysis program out of the drug and crime lab. That was out of the forensic lab with adult probation. There was some issues of whether we could continue that with the equipment they had and the way they were set up. We couldn't just simply take it over. It was too expensive. So we've been looking at options for a number of months and working with the outside agencies to see what kind of revenue streams we could generate. Jerry Ennis has been hugely instrumental in working with domestics and Licata and a few of those people that are going to use this lab, and with working with the companies that have been wanting to give us equipment. As you know, we had a big piece of equipment. There was arrears on the equipment. We had to negotiate a settlement on that piece of equipment. I believe now that we're clearly lined up to start providing the service possibly in about 30 days. We did hire a part-time employee to do the screening and analysis. That person hasn't reported yet. It was to be determined date when we start them. I think the equipment can be here in 30 days, and I would hope that we're able to send out a message to the community that we can start doing this sampling once again. My estimates are that, as we spoke months ago, we're going to have a small amount of burn on this. It's not going to be a completely cost recovery program. The need will grow, I think, over time. We'll probably be able to capture most of the cost, but we do have some of the levy dollars supporting that operation. We're just going to have to wait and see. The one good thing is we did a year by year on the equipment, so we're not locked into a piece of equipment. If 2 or 3 years down the road we decide that it's not working and the demand either decreases or changes, that's one of the problems I had the last time. I don't think that they did a bad piece of work over there with that old piece of equipment. They had a forecast that was going far into the future, but when the economy shifted, lots of people went to a less costly method or stopped doing urinalysis screening completely, like CBCF used to do a lot of it. They lost a lot of their grant money and they stopped sending those samples over. So the demand was there and the trend was there, but then everything changed and they were locked into a piece of equipment at a certain usage level that had to be paid whether they used it or not. I didn't want to see us slip into that situation until we have a firm understanding of a trend on the demand with reestablishing ourselves providing these tests.
Wonderful, thank you.
Did you look at the having an outside agency actually do it, like the EMH or anyone?
Commissioner, I did not have time to work with the hospitals to see if they wanted to get into that testing. I know that the domestic relations and Licata and the folks had looked for other alternatives, but they couldn't find a cost-effective alternative. Is that Jerry was meeting with them and working with them. We're going to be able to provide this test at $5 for each test. Now, I want to clear that up because I don't know if I'm explaining it correctly. Usually you do what they call a 3-bank test, a 5-bank test, a 7-bank test, depending on how many, for what they order, that would be the cost of the sample. The basic 3 screen is going to be $15. And I do know that right now we couldn't produce that 3 screen at $15 in Lorain County. we can do it because we get economy of using the same resources, the people in place that are there. And we're able to go all the way up to a 7 test that would be used in more detailed analysis, and it could be in criminal activity or things like that. And we can also do, which we did a lot of, and I was surprised, the drug and blood concentrations for law enforcement. We do that now for, I think it's going to be $25, $37.50. I didn't bring this sheet with me, but I think it's going to be $37.50. It's very inexpensive.
And that's including the overhead costs of the employee.
The overhead costs and on the recapture costs, the way I estimated it out, the program should run us about $50,000 a year. I believe we'll bring in, with the demand that's been indicated out there, right around 42 or 43. But the employee is not going to be engaged all the time. There's going to be other time we use that employee to do other lab work because the volume just comes and goes there. So the burn is going to be low, and we'll be able to use that time efficiently. That's why I went to a part-time employee too.
Right, so $50,000 on that. Now, you're saying that we're going to recover around $42,000 from other groups using it. Children's Services pays. Lakota is going to pay.
Correct.
What about domestic relations? Do they have the ability
They
to
pay.
charge?
They pay, but obviously we're paying ourselves.
Right.
Well, right, the question, let me rephrase the question. Do they charge the person who is being tested?
And you asked me that question a few weeks ago when I've been working on it. We got a pretty good answer that they could charge.
Okay.
But then I sent it back over and I asked for more, and I CC'd you on that. I asked for
Right.
more detail about, okay, you can charge, how would you go about that? And then what is the potential of us actually getting that feedback? And I haven't gotten an answer to that. I still need to track back on that with a tracer.
Yeah, I know other court systems, you either pay it when you go there, or you get to spend the night at the county motel.
Well,
So there are ways that they can enforce it, but the question is, will they enforce it?
And if they even try to enforce it, all their resources to capture it from. And we waiver a lot of fees in this county. And every county, let me not give us a black eye, every county ends up with a lot of fees in their criminal justice system that are not collectible, or cost more to try to collect than the debt that's owed itself. I'll keep working on that issue. Jody's usually very responsive. She's been busy, but I'll send out a tracer on that. I just want to get a clear understanding that if they do put this into place, that we're going to be able to recover that. It's important because they're the biggest user of what we're going to be doing is going to be domestic relations.
I mean, I understand it's hard to get a price from a outside contractor because we have no trend,
Right.
no data to trend on it. So it may be higher or lower based on this year. But I'd like to see if we're doing a year contract, the next year we actually go out for a bid.
Well, we did take bids.
Well, I'm talking, try to get a bid from a outside vendor to do it like.
I think Tom's talking about privatizing it and taking it out of government's hands.
Okay, we could do that, but we put a lot of time and resources in establishing this. And I was very conservative. I based it upon 10,000 tests. Emmy had historical data that indicated it would probably be close to 12 or 13. If it comes in at 12 or 13, we're going to be clear. But I used a conservative number of 10,000 units at $5 a unit. So, and even then, I'm still thinking if that's soft. That's why I'd rather come in with a conservative number and do better than just to overestimate to try to demonstrate, oh, this is so wonderful. But remember, we'll have hired an employee, we'll have bought a piece of equipment. Now, we're on a year-to-year on the supplies on that equipment. So we're not locked into a number, but we are buying the piece of equipment itself. It's the materials. It's much like...
Well, we haven't purchased that yet.
You're doing it right here.
Okay. What I would suggest then is we go out and we look to see if we can privatize it first, see what the numbers would come back before we invest in anything. And then, what would it take you, about 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks?
Well, if that's going to happen, then those entities should do it themselves.
Right.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm just looking at for the county. I understand I would like to help
Right.
the other agencies, but at the same time, I don't want to go, even if it's a $10,000 burn.
Mhm.
After I did a ride-along with the Sheriff's Department yesterday, or Monday, that $10,000 could go towards equipment that they need like thermal imaging or night vision goggles for when they're out looking for people, which we spent 2 or 3 hours looking for 5 suspects.
I understand, and that burn's gonna come from our levy proceeds, and nothing that happens in an area like the crime lab is ever gonna be self-sustaining. Even if we charge for drug tests, we still need the levy to supplement that work in the community. But if you want to go out and look for privatization, I suggest that we just don't do this, and the domestic relations looks for it, and Licata looks for it. I'm not really here to do their work.
Right.
This was something that was asked to, can we duplicate this resource once again, and can we duplicate it at a far less cost, which we have. Mindful that this piece of equipment and the way they were doing it was about $180,000, I think it was, a year on that contract. It was quite substantial.
Yeah, I don't.
But it was up there, and we've been
Jim,
able to
this is
significantly lower
a
that cost.
service that we provided previously. I mean, we're getting close to net on it. You know,
We didn't provide it. The forensic lab that's now.
right, the crime and drug
right.
lab provided
Well,
through the levy funds.
Well, no, the adult probation provided it through the forensic lab. We were shared employees back and forth,
It was pretty melded.
but it wasn't us at that time.
Yeah. I just know there are a lot of private companies that are doing this. My daughter going into high school playing because she plays sports, they come in, they do the testing. Private companies are going through hiring companies to come in to do drug testing and that. And it's pretty cost effective. That's why I'm kind of weighing it, and I'm a little reluctant to go out and just approve this without knowing what it would be on the private side. And
Jerry, you've worked with those agencies. I really haven't worked with.
Yeah, well, a couple things. First of all, this is just a request for proposal right now, so this isn't, this is just asking them to submit something. And we did approach the other company that supplied Siemens before, and they didn't seem interested. Secondly, we did have a lot of discussions with the CADA and Children's Services, Mental Health Board, Social Services, and I didn't understand all the ins and outs, but I do understand that they have some possible methodology of getting some reimbursement on the costs that they incur there. Again, I'm not arguing for or against this. All I can tell you is that ever since the old one closed, you know, the law enforcement agencies, in particular the Chiefs organization, has been constantly, you know, asking me when we're going to get this done. So.
Yeah. And for Licata, and if they have ways to recover some of the funds, it doesn't matter if it's controlled by the county or if it's controlled by a private organization.
You just asked the question, and
Yeah.
I was trying to address the answer to that question.
No, I just want to make sure people understood it. That again, I would like to see it at least go out, since private companies do it. Handle this. I don't like really getting into businesses where we have private companies that are able to fill the needs and run the services that are provided.
Well, we could do, I would like to see it done concurrently. I still don't, I'd say we go out for a
Right, can we do it-
proposal.
Actually, I don't
In
want to.
tandem?
Actually, I don't want to do it. I mean, this is not my responsibility. If they need testing in their organization, let them go out and find the resource. I got my hands full already.
Right.
Okay, so, you know, now also I'm tracking down resources for, you know, other departments somewhere that have their own employees that can do this. So if, again, I don't have a real dog in this hunt whether we do it or we don't do it. But I just don't want to spend time doing their work. We just tell them, you know, we're not going to do it, and let them go find their own resource.
But then we're at their mercy to, do they care with whether they get the lowest price like we do?
The only one
Our
that,
money.
the only one would be domestic relations, because they're a general fund supported department. But, you know, also, it was like when the old equipment, when they went out of business, it got dumped on our lap too.
Right.
And Jerry and I had to negotiate our way out of that and find a settlement of that. We didn't enter into that contract, we didn't buy
Right.
that equipment. Somewhere the buck's gotta stop, and we're getting a little tense here, because it seems to always stop on top of my desk and on
Yeah.
top of my head. So if this is something we don't want to do, then I'm fine with that. But the domestics is quite able to go out and test the waters themselves and come back and give us that information if they want.
I still think with all the entities we help government, we're here for a service. It's not for a profit. And
Yeah, but-
we've been doing it, and we have the ability to do it at a reasonable cost. As you said, if DR goes out and pays for it somewhere in the private sector, it just comes out of our budget anyway. I would rather see us, if that's a long-term project, let domestic relations look how to go out and look at pricing for next year versus us providing the service for a year for on a one-year
Well, we're buying the
contract.
equipment.
And Commissioner, I appreciate the direction you're taking, but I will tell you that the equipment's gonna be about $50,000.
Okay.
And while this says a request, we already have proposals, we're just clarifying what we're doing here, so I don't wanna mislead you. And Tom's not inaccurate in that. I thought we looked at, it was about 50,000 upfront for the piece of equipment, and then we had a commitment rate.
I think it was a little less than that, Jim, maybe 40,
Okay.
45. but-
Okay, so it would entail upfront having that piece of equipment, which I've figured that the ROI on that's gonna be over, hopefully over a 3 to 5 year period. Because we cannot recover the full cost of that on an absorption model in the first year or two.
I just think that's a service that we provided in the past. It's worked, it's been reasonable enough for all the other departments. I think on the backside of it, if we go out, it goes through the private, they don't find those numbers, it's not getting done. The Chiefs Association is asking for it. We have the lab there.
Yeah.
I think, there's just some things you do as government that aren't necessarily a profit generating. Break even would be wonderful.
Well,
And
there,
it sounds like we're close.
there are companies out there that provide the service, and I don't think government should ever get into business and be in competition with private companies. And I really don't think we should go through and approve this today without knowing what the private industry could offer it at. I would say that we would hold this and inform domestic relations that they need to go out, take a look, give us a couple bids on the services. And if they come in higher or lower, then we'll make our decision.
I think we should do both. I think we should ask the private sector to
Yeah.
give us a price on this, but in tandem with this request for proposal. This isn't
Yeah,
we're
but,
not approving this, we're just going for a proposal.
but to Mr. Cortez's point, this is just filing the paperwork. They already have the proposals. They know the numbers. Am I correct in that statement?
You're fairly accurate.
So I think once we make a decision, if we approve to go out for a proposal, or, I'm sorry, not proposal, request for a proposal, the paperwork's already done. It's just basically saying yay and then approving.
Well, it would have to come back to us for final approval.
It would have to come back, but you're looking at a week.
I would say that's accurate.
Okay.
We just want to clarify so that there's no misunderstanding that other companies can submit. We've talked to them all. They'll send it, right now what we have is not a very formal, but they'll formalize it and we'll have it pretty quick. We needed to make a soft approach to them, so we had an idea what the costs were going to be. There was just no way of identifying that because the equipment is very specific that does this type of testing. And there's only a few companies that actually provide this type of equipment.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm sorry, impressed we should go out and get the formal proposal. If DR and those want to go looking for pricing, that's fine. But
Well, I think we need to do that first, before we purchase a piece of equipment for
we haven't bought the
$50,000.
equipment. This will just formalize the process. We'll have an exact number and know where we're at.
Again, we already know where we're at here. This is just paperwork. It's-
Right, you're just formalizing. I
Right.
understand that, Tom, but it gives us the number. And then we can send DR out and Licata and all those other ones to see what they can do on the private market.
I
But, go
I
ahead,
think
Gary.
how this came back to us, that they had started to do that, and they were talking about they could get a better price if they joined in a group and did it in one consolidated thing, that they could get better pricing, and they got together and tried to talk about what the best methodology of doing that, and they came to the conclusion that it would be easier for the county, which was an entity that had already done it and has all the processes in effect, but that was just kind of their conclusion, Tom.
Well,
That's what we do.
there would be nothing to prevent the county, Children's Services, and Licata from joining together, entering into a partnership and using a private organization to pay for it.
No, it can
Or
be
to do the
done.
work. I mean, it can be done.
Can be done.
Again, my concern is we're gonna go on a year-to-year contract with this after we purchase the equipment. And are we going to end up in the same spot that we ended up a couple months ago with taking care of something that's really doesn't belong to the Board of Commissioners?
What was that, what, you mean the service?
Yeah.
Actually, it would be up to the Board of Commissioners as the overseer of the Drug and Crime Lab, what services would be provided at the crime lab. This service would fit easily under the definition of drug and crime lab, should you want to provide this service. We hadn't before because the crime lab was closed and adult probation was growing through the 90s, and they provided what they called a forensic lab to do the urine analysis testing of their consumer group. So when the lab was reactivated, because I had the unfortunate pleasure of shutting it down in 1994 with Kavanaugh, when it was reactivated in 2005, that's when they joined the resources because they wanted to do some spectral analysis on drugs and so forth. But the crime lab could have been providing that all along had it been active. Remember, it was closed for 11 years because there wasn't sufficient resources to buy equipment and support personnel. During that time period, we banked some money, and then we were able to buy the equipment and then run the operation because the equipment was purchased with the retained savings.
Yeah. But right now, the crime labs, we bring in around $153,000, I believe, on the two levies.
It's decreased from the reevaluation. You could be right, Commissioner. I don't have that on top of my head, but it's not
And then
huge.
we put in $249,000, so another $90,000+ out of the general fund. And if we're looking at a burn of $10,000, potentially $10,000, that's just adding additional costs from the general
Well,
fund.
the lab has a burn now. With the splitting of resources and the devaluation, we're bringing in low proceeds. It's a very old perpetual levy. I think it was passed in like 1981.
Right.
So, it's
Well,
a
there's two
permanent levy.
levies.
There was one, but it's split. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the split is something like 70-30,
Right.
65-35 between the drug task force and the crime lab. The drug task force, the old MEG levy, which is what we called it, is actually a commissioner's levy, and the drug task force used to be under the commissioners. But for various requirements under the Ohio Revised Code, it was moved under the sheriff's department. But the levy and the proceeds of the levy are yours, and you forward them to the sheriff. The crime lab's a little bit different, has been different. It's been operated under a different umbrella of responsibilities off and on for 20 years. But there is a burn rate there now. It's not going, that's why we're out for
A levy.
a levy.
I just
I
think
thi-
government has a responsibility to provide certain services if we're able to do it at a cost level that is competitive and to help the not-for-profits and our own agencies. And it streamlines the process. It's centrally located. I just think that's what our job is.
Well, I think we should look at all options, and I think maybe DR needs to take a look at private company doing it. So if we could just hold this for one more week and,
Yeah, or I would probably hold it for 2, give them enough time to go out. EMH is right down the street from us, so it's another central location, see if they're willing to do it. And, they could talk with private companies if they need help. I can give them the contact information on that. Or look at the schools that are doing testing as well. So, yeah,
all
I
right,
would
2
like to
weeks.
hold it for
I'll-
2 weeks.
I agree. I'll
Withdraw your second.
withdraw my second.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay. Under Job and Family Services, authorized purchase service with CSEA and Dunbar Armored Inc., Cleveland, to provide armored car carrier service for pickup and delivery of cash and checks effective September 1st, 2014 through August 31st, 2015, and a cost of $347.63 per month, plus miscellaneous fees if incurred. Authorized director to execute and amend for changes in program and content and increase on behalf of the board as prosecutor's approval as to form.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Cortez?
All righty. That's quite a conversation for a short agenda.
Mhm. That always happens.
Commissioners, I need to request from you, and I'll pass this in advance, for Children and Family First Council for $78,000. The way the state is now reimbursing us for the operations of Job and Family Services, for Children and Family First Council, is making it more and more challenging to pay our vendors. Sometimes we're not paid for 90 days from the state before we can pay the vendors. Now, I have incorporated some lengthier terms in our vendor contracts to recognize that
It's an issue all the time.
we may not get the funds on hand, but it's getting longer and longer. Most of our vendors are nonprofits. They really don't have the ability to provide a service and then wait for the state for 3 months before they reimburse us for those services so we can forward that money on to these vendors. Last year, I got a minor advance from you to continue operations and get the vendors paid. As you know, a lot of these nonprofits work pretty hand to mouth out there. So I'm requesting this advance, but I really want to tell you more fully that I'm probably going to be back here in October requesting probably $200,000 worth of advances into Children Family First to keep the operation running. And it's an advance, we'll eventually get it back, but let me explain it this way. Once that $200,000 advance goes, it's going to be a perpetual advance. It'll come in and it'll go out.
Right.
So we're going to be burdened in our general fund with, although recoverable, but it's going to be $200,000 that's out of our reach if we're going to continue this operation under the current repayment schedule by the state.
Sort of like a lot of our community development stuff, it just isn't perpetuity.
Exactly. It ends up being out there, and it looks like we have funds, but they're in a float in between programs. So as soon as we do a pay in on a program, we have to do an advance out to pay the current operations. So it's really becoming distressing, but we cannot keep our vendor contracts and keep the folks that are doing services here in Lorain County. They just don't have the ability to wait 2 and 3 months, and sometimes a little longer, to get paid. And I would hope that, I'm going to send some correspondence down to the state, and I would hope that they would look at this, but they need to find a better way than that. It works real well for them, real efficient for them to do like a quarterly pay or reports and stuff, but it's just unacceptable at the local level here when you have to be in touch with these working groups every day.
Well,
Yes.
I've been getting a lot of calls, and Sandy's been doing, your assistant's been doing a great job of helping me. Where we see one of these issues, we have volunteers that provide assistance driving individuals to appointments through Job and Family Services.
Okay.
They're taking 2 months in order to get reimbursed for their mileage. And a lot of these people, they're not wealthy. They're doing it because they're helping neighbors and that. I'd like to see if we could do something to help them, to streamline this process to make it more efficient.
I'm aware of that challenge is over there. It's not for a lack of a draw on funds over there. It's a process issue with evaluating and qualifying the travel. I know a couple of them have, to me, they've looked kind of long when we've looked at them. I'll talk to Mary Lou again. I know we've had conversation with her. Normally what the problems have come down to is the paperwork, some inadequacy in the paperwork to justify the reimbursement, and then it takes a while to get back to them, and they take a while to get it back in the system, and that stretches out the payment time. But I will ask her to procedurally take a look at if we can tighten that up somewhat. And I agree, people are putting money out of their pocket, they want to get reimbursed in the shortest time possible. Remembering it takes us some time once everything's processed to get it through our system over here, and we only meet once a week, we approve once a week. Maybe we can get some kind of blanket approval for that would take some of that time at the back end off. I'll take a look at it.
Or even looking at developing a software. I know private companies, they have software for your mileage reimbursement or expense reports. You enter the data and it verifies it, so you're not having to have somebody go through and do the math on it.
I'll ask her to give me a detail. We've talked about it, but I don't really have a great understanding of the totalitarianness of the process. So let me go back and talk with her on that.
And there's about 6 or 7 people that call me monthly asking me to go through and try to find out where their payments are.
Yeah, I've had those same phone calls for the last couple of years since systems changed, but most of the time it ends up being a snafu in the paperwork, and they have to re-audit them and double-check where the transportation's been, which holds up the payment. Because I know the people have called the auditor's office then call us, we call back to Job and Family Services.
It doesn't take much of a hiccup in that process to
Right.
add an extended delay. By the very nature of how we have to process payments and the requirements to limit fraud, waste, and abuse, and the oversight of payments, it's a very lengthy process. But we may be able to shorten it down a little bit. I'll talk to her, get her to map out exactly how that occurs, and then what the realistic timeframes have been, and then maybe we'll look at, we can pull a piece of something out of there.
What you can do is look at how many reimbursements they do within a month and how many are outside of the 30 days and within the 30 days, and you can check and see if those are snafus within the paperwork would be my guess.
Well, remember, when we talk with Job and Family Service, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars payments. So it's a significant department
I'm
with
sure
a lot
they
of
have it. I'm sure
responsibility.
they have those, something selected where it's a reimbursement for the driving. I'm sure they have things categorized accordingly, that they could see where they're doing things at and what's streamlined and what isn't.
Okay, sure. I don't have any further comments.
Do I have a motion and a second for the appropriation in advance of $78,000 to Children and
I'll
Family First
move.
Council?
Second?
Any thing further? Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Ennis?
I just have one matter of pending litigation to discuss, update the commissioners regarding.
Commissioners report.
I had a meeting yesterday where Goodwill of Lorain County is going to be having their annual fundraiser. It'll be their second one. It's Saturday, October the 11th, and it's going to be at Black River Landing. It's called a Hidden Treasure, and what they do, they have like 10 tables with items from Goodwill, and you have to guess at how much everything is valued at, and they then go on like eBay or whatever and find out what would actually sell for. So whoever gets closest wins something.
Like a
or-
Price is Right.
Kind of like that,
Yeah.
yeah. It's really fun. So anybody that wants tickets, please contact me. I could get you tickets. They're going to be ready for sale this coming week.
And how much are they?
They're $20,
Okay.
and it's going to be a great event.
I'll take two of them.
You'll take two? Okay. Also, we're doing sponsors. If you want to do a sponsorship, we have gold for $500, silver for $250, and $100 for bronze. So I
Okay.
can let you know what all those various things will get you. So let me know if you'd like tickets for that. Call my office phone 329-5100, and you will also get my cell phone if I'm not in. So be a great event. That's all I have for this week.
Thank you, Commissioner. This week, the Solid Waste Policy Committee met. We're going over our plan that will be going out first of next year. We covered Section 4, which was all the statistics for the recycling in Lorain County. One new proposal was brought to be considered for next month's discussion was going through a proper glass recycling program for the county, basically focused on commercial businesses, bars, restaurants, a lot of bottles. So we had a lot of dialogue on that. They're supposed to bring us a plan on how that would work with being cost neutral for businesses, because everyone wants to be green, but if there's a significant cost level to that, it can hinder the program. So on with Section 4 and Section 5. End of my report.
We got to be getting pretty close to the 50,000 car.
That will be in September sometime,
September?
correct?
Okay.
Yes.
We decide what we're gonna.
They discussed that yesterday, and Mr. Bailey is working on that, and he will send some things up to us.
Okay.
But it looks like we're going to break that the first of 10 days of September.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Extremely busy week. So many festivals going on this summer and Saturday. Elyria Township Community Day. Avon Lake had a festival in North Ridgeville. Amherst, they went out to the German festival that the Amherst Historic Society does. Taking the kids there, for field trips and that, but it was neat to just kind of go back, look at it, see what they put together, and what they're working on. They got some wonderful cars in the garage if you like old antique cars. I believe they have a 1925 Ford in there that they're trying to restore to get operational. And amazing food, and of course, good beer. So it was a win-win, and it was right across right around my, down the street from my house. So made for a wonderful evening. Got to see a couple Amherst City Council members. A few of them were out dancing on the floor, which was quite entertaining. I won't say their names. I don't want to embarrass them, but overall, great week. And high school sports are starting. Looking forward to the football season. Amherst Comets got a home game on the 29th, and hopefully my home team's going to have a good season this year. And just so many sports. I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of kids that are in organized sports anymore. I remember the days where going out doing pickup games. You don't see that anymore. Everyone's organized, and it's just great to see so many community members getting involved, the coaches. For a little football league, you got 4 or 5 parents helping out coaching, and I just want to thank all the volunteers that do that. Really appreciate it. End of my report.
Also, the county fair starts Monday morning with the breakfast.
Yeah.
Board correspondence?
Move the reading be waived.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Public comment?
Anyone wishing to address the board this morning? Everybody looks pretty familiar here.
Do we want to talk about the letter that we received from the sheriff and the cost?
I really haven't read through it. I just glanced
Oh, okay.
over it, so I just got it this morning on my chair about, what, 9:15 I got it or so, Teresa?
Yes.
All right.
So, not really anything to discuss. I haven't read through it.
Okay.
Motion to move an executive session is outlined by the county administrator and county prosecutor.
Second.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
This has been a broadcast of the recent Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Wednesday morning at 9:30 at the Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and you are invited to attend. Agendas are posted prior to the meeting at www.loraincounty.us. Click on Departments to see the Commissioners page, then click on View Agenda for a printable copy of the agenda.